Welcome to another episode in our Destination Rural podcast series. I'm Peter Rutherford and I'm the CEO of the Rural Doctors Association of Australia. For this episode, I'm going to be joined by Dr. Megan Belot from Victoria. Megan's also at the RDAA President-elect, so this will be a great opportunity to get to know her a little bit better. Thanks for joining me. Before we get started, I'll just like to do an acknowledgement of country and pay my respects to our traditional custodians of the land we all meet in, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and also acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may actually be joining us for our Destination Rural podcast. So thanks again, Megan. Welcome to our Destination Rural podcast series. You're one of my early interviewees, so be gentle with me.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
So we'll jump straight into it. Particularly interested, you are our RDAA President-elect, so I'm really excited to talk with you and get to know you a little bit better, and for our members in particular to get to know you a little bit better. So tell me a little bit about what you do, where you work, and how you make it work. So go for it.
So I'm a rural generalist, and I do my GP work in Kerrang in northern part of Victoria near the Murray, and I also am a GP anaesthetist and do my anaesthetics in Echuca, as well as have VMO admitting rights at the hospital to do general ward rounds and emergency work. And then I'm also the on-call anaesthetic doctor for Kahuna Hospital to support their maternity services, although at the moment they're on bypass, and so just helping with their anaesthetic services at the moment.
How do you manage that, like with 3 services? How do you have specific days that you're rostered to certain things, or?
Yeah, so how it works is pretty much everything is based around my anaesthetic roster in Echuca. So I say that I'll generally try to aim to do one full day a week of anaesthetics in Echuca, and then I get my on-call roster for Echuca, which I generally do about 4 on-calls a month, which requires my family to live in Echuca for that 24-hour period. So I can't be out on the farm half an hour away. I have to be closer to the hospital. So that kind of dictates my roster then, and then I slot in my GP days around that. And then pretty much every other day that I'm not on call in Echuca, I'm on call for Kahuna, because my farm is only 15 minutes away from that hospital. So it's a bit of a juggling act. And yeah, I just kind of make it work. I like driving, let's put it that way.
Fair enough. And just with your anaesthetic work, do you get a good variety in the anaesthetic work, or?
Yeah, I'm extremely lucky in Echuca, and that's one of the reasons why I still work in Echuca, is for the variety of anaesthetics, everywhere from general anaesthesia, where we do bowel surgery sometimes, through to orthopedics with joint replacements, and then maternity, which I really love. Love doing Caesars, elective Caesars, emergency Caesars, and then we also have gynae, urology. We're really, really lucky in Echuca. We've got a beautiful breadth of work, and it's a really good theatre team to work with as well.
And do you have a group of rural generalist anaesthetist colleagues that you're able to call upon if needed, or like who are your mentors and that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did my GP training in Echuca, and there was 2 other GP anaesthetists in the practice when I worked there, and they're still GP anaesthetists in Echuca today, and they're pretty much, we're really lucky in Echuca. We've got a great bunch of GP anaesthetists, and we all work together, and we can always help each other out. If there's an issue, just give your colleague a phone call and, talk something through, or can you come in and give me a hand? The other beauty about Echuca is that we currently run 2 theatres, possibly in the near future to be 3 theatres, so it's going to get a bit busier, but just to have that collegial backup is really, really lucky. Something definitely in Kahuna that I don't have. I really have to be quite methodical about what I'm doing in Kahuna because it's me. That's it. There's no one really to help back you up unless there is the other GP anaesthetist in town that day. So, yeah, really lucky in Echuca.
But do the links that you have in Echuca also then maybe provide not necessarily in-person support, but it certainly could act as a advice network and things like that if you need it?
Oh, absolutely. And by me working in Echuca and maintaining those skills, it keeps my confidence up. It keeps my skill set up. And so that's actually the reason why I still maintain my work in Echuca and not necessarily only work in Kahuna or Kerang, is because I need to keep that breadth of skill that I get of anaesthetics in Echuca, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. I think that's what, we hear a lot about, rural generalist anaesthetists when they're not getting, regular access to lists and that they can de-skill quite quickly. So it's good to hear that there is models that are really strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important. I would say that I'm still in the beginning of my career. So I'm only 5 years post-fellowship. And so, I still I don't have that 30-year experience to draw on. I think once, I'm potentially at that level, then, it would be quite easy just to do the occasional list in Kahuna or Kerang and not have that breadth behind me. So I think it's actually really important for, the fellows coming through to make sure that they're really maximising their skill set and pushing themselves to make sure that they've, keeping their skills up essentially.
So you mentioned the farm before. So
yes.
you're married and you also have a toddler, which I think is amazing. The fact that you've got, you're a busy mum, which is, pretty much a full-on job as well. So how do you manage all of that? And tell us a little bit about your family and did you buy the farm with, where you wanted to work, or were you already was your husband a local, or did you move there for your work?
No, so pretty much we bought our farm half an hour out of Echuca because I wanted to work in Echuca. My husband's originally from South Australia. And I met him when I was working for the Royal Flying Doctors in Broken Hill. So he was in New South Wales when I met him. So he's not too keen on living in Victoria, to be honest, although we live 5 k's from the Murray, so he's happy that that's reasonably okay. But, and I must admit, Corona hasn't made life very easy with that. But anywho, so we bought the farm initially actually to be closer to Kahuna Hospital was for me because at that stage we had full maternity services and we needed to have that anaesthetic backup, and I felt like if I was 15 minutes from Kahuna Hospital then I'd be able to be that person and actually be that long-term GP anaesthetist for the town. That was my original plan, and then being half an hour from Echuca enabled me to still be able to work in Echuca and do what I have to do there as well. So, yeah, we've bought the farm here. So, no, my husband's not a local, but he's probably done a lot better at socialising in the beginning when we first came here. He joined the old boys football club, which is the Masters, and so that's really helped him, to feel a bit more comfortable in the area, because it's actually quite hard. Sometimes moving to certain country towns to, I guess, kind of fit in is the way, because, we weren't born here. So, just got to make a bit of a new start. And I must admit, actually having a kid has also helped with that. So being able to go to mother's group and meet women that way has been really good. And then also working part-time and has been really good too for me as well, just to have a bit more of a social life and actually get out into the community and people seeing you as a person and not just the doctor has been really good.
Yeah. So I guess that's, something that one of the things that there is the ability to work part-time in rural towns and have some of that work-life balance as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. I feel really lucky at the moment. I feel like I'm in this sweet spot where I get to choose what I get to do, and I think that's a real privilege. I must admit my GP practice treats me like a queen. I feel very valued where I work, and my patients are always happy just to see me. They don't mind, and I feel really supported by my colleagues who are there, majority of the time as well. So they're happy to have me one day a week. And of course, when it comes to school holidays, and my colleagues need to go off, then I try to do work more during that time so that they can have a break as well. So, yeah.
So there is that whole give and take, like you talked about being on call and after hours, that sort of thing, as well as maybe doing a little bit extra during school holidays. So it really is about that team effort and having a focus on the needs of the team as opposed to an individual.
Yes. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would say that. I try to limit my week to only work so many days a week. So I say 2 days a week. If my husband heard me say that, he would laugh. But I try to aim for that. And if it blows out to 3 or 4 days, then it's still not so bad with the family, because it is all a juggle. It's a constant juggle.
So I've met your mum a couple of times at various events. So how important has your mum been as, a good backup as well?
My mum is pivotal. I can't live without her. I'm extremely lucky. My mum drives up and looks after my son for a few days in a row when I need to get work done. And my husband also looks after our son as well when needed to. So, yeah, it's just kind of being able to juggle. But, yeah, my mum has been amazing. Prior to COVID, it was fantastic to be able to take her away to some of the RDAA things that I needed to do, which was just great to even spend that time with her. It's been really good.
So with childcare, I guess that's one of the things that we often hear is a potential limitation of going rural, but it is looking at your family as well as, paid childcare. So there's options there, but you've got to be quite innovative.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very, very lucky that my mum really wants to look after my son. Like she, basically, because I was looked after by my grandmother at times when my mum had to go to work. So my mum is very much an active grandma on that front, and I'm very, very appreciative of that. And mum's also nearly semi-retired, so very, very fortunate that mum can come up and look after Mac. But in terms of childcare, there are other options around the area, which is great. So in Echuca, there's multiple childcare settings that Mac could go to, whereas in Kahuna, there's not so much. There's only family daycare. And actually in the last couple of months, there's been discussion around actually getting proper childcare in Kahuna, which has been a massive discussion in the district.
So when you were, I guess, looking at Kahuna and, the area, it was really about finding a community that met your needs. So finding the fit, the right community for you. You didn't have necessarily like family ties or anything, but it was really about finding a community that fit for you. Would that be fair to say? Or
probably yes, but probably more. So yes, definitely. The nursing staff and the hospital staff at Kahuna Hospital was definitely one of the draw cards, but also Echuca as well. It would have been nice to have afforded a farm closer to Echuca as well, but prices are extremely expensive. So that was actually one of the other driving forces. But really, I probably was the job, to be honest. It was a job it was the anaesthetic job in Echuca that brought me back. Yeah. Yeah.
So in the last 5 years or so, or just under 5 years, you've started to get involved in the advocacy space. So you're a past RDAV president and, as I mentioned earlier, the RDAA president-elect. So what's drawn you to the advocacy space and really, taking a real leadership role as a rural doctor?
Oh, look, it's something that's always been pretty strong. It's been a very strong cause to my heart ever from a very young age, and that would be to do with my grandmother and her influence and I guess stories that she told from days gone by when pretty much her father died of acute appendicitis because they were out bush on a very on a station just north of Hay, and pretty much he was unwell. She was 10 at the time, and he had to ride his horse to the local hospital, which would have been Hay, and there was no doctor there, and then he had to keep going to Shepparton, and by the time he got to Shepparton, he died. And that had a significant impact on her childhood, but also the entire family. So they moved back to Melbourne. So my great-grandmother and the 4 kids moved back to Melbourne, and that's something that my grandmother used to talk about quite regularly. So that's just something that's of a personal nature, I guess, that has always been in the background, just wanting to improve, healthcare for Australians, for our rural Australians. Yeah, it's something I've always probably wanted to be a rural GP from a young age. I loved country practice as a kid, absolutely loved Harry, thought he was amazing. And it's funny, I've watched episodes now and gone, oh, interesting, Megan, interesting. So it's just something that I've always really felt quite passionately about. So, yeah. And then I think in the last few years with Kahuna fighting to keep their maternity services, that's something that's definitely spurred me along. And, just want to see a change and make a difference.
So you've talked a lot about family and your job. Mm-hmm. What do you do to look after yourself? And I know being a mum and having a farm, you've got about 3 full-time jobs. And I certainly know the former Minister for Regional Health, Mark Coulton, referred to you as the real deal when he heard that you had a farm, you're a rural doctor with anaesthetics, doing general practice and a mum, which I think is a really good description of you, the real deal. But what do you do to, look after yourself, have some downtime?
Yep. So I generally like to have holidays, but thanks to COVID, that isn't so much happening. So having a regular holiday where we get away would be nice. And we tried to do that last week, but that didn't quite happen, and that's fine. So I think that's quite important, being able to get away as a family and have a bit of downtime away from the farm, especially for Mick, because it really is a 24/7 job for him. And it's something that we all have to consider with the family every day to make sure that everything is going well. I do like doing some exercise. I think that's really important. I've recently been able to get a personal trainer that I see for once a week for half an hour, and just to have that time, I find that's really important, and being able to fit in a few of her classes before work, if I'm working in Echuca, has been great. This year I bravely took on netball again, and I'm in B Res, which is essentially D grade, like it's the worst grade that you could be in, but it's a bit of fun. So that's been great. And then also just to have a bit of a laugh, there is the women's cricket team, which I put my hand up to make sure that there was enough numbers. I'm not the oldest lady on the team, but I'm definitely the one with the worst skill set and I made a whole 2 runs for the season, and it was quite funny when I made those 2 runs because all the younger ladies were like just clapping, go Megan. It was quite funny. So yeah,
I can't believe you fit all this into your life.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I don't particularly like cricket, but my husband loves it, so it's just trying to have that family time to go to the cricket and that sort of thing. So yeah, but also just I guess maintaining support for female cricket and just the female sports, the sporting things that are coming along for the juniors is really good.
Yeah. So in rural medicine, we often talk about, if a community sort of gets 5-7 years out of a rural doctor, that's a good outcome.
Yep.
And, you don't have to go rural for your whole career, but part of it is good. So where do you see yourself and, say, your family in 5 to 7 years?
I quite like where I am now. I think that I'm very lucky that I've got a really good job. Everything's very flexible and I've got that family support not too far away. Although I know that from our farming aspirations, we may have to look to go north to be able to afford more of a farm, to be able to do that sort of work, to run more cows. So there is that discussion as to move up to Queensland or the Northern Territory. There's always that discussion with Mick. But I guess I just still would love to be still doing that mix of GP and anaesthetics. I must have both. I wouldn't be able to function with only being able to do GP because I really need that procedural work. Just helps to maintain a good balance. So, yeah, we shall see.
I can see people now thinking, oh, we need a GP anaesthetist. We've got farms around us.
Well, Mick wants to run 1,000 cattle, so give me a call. And I'll need to rob a bank at the same time.
Okay, good to know. All right. Before we finish up, we'll do a quick fire round.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a question and just the first thing that pops into your head. Don't worry, it's painless. Okay. AFL team.
Essendon.
Karaoke song.
Anything, I reckon. I'd give it a go. Probably going to be crap at it.
That's all right. Sydney or Melbourne?
Melbourne.
Holiday destination of choice?
Port Douglas.
Best thing about rural medicine?
Variety.
Worst thing about rural medicine?
Not enough rural generalists.
Okay, last one. FANSCA, FRACGP or FACRM?
Oh, FACRM all the way. But I've got both.
Megan Belot, thank you so much for joining our Destination Rural podcast series, and thank you for chatting with me.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me.